that idea, or actually, yeah, I could take that, or no, I don't, not the moment. That was not one for me. It doesn't resonate. That's it. The idea of the book is you just dip in and out, you gather these ideas, and these are things that people have actually done. So these are not conceptual theories. They are things that people have actually done. So that was just one I wanted to share with you. Let me show you a second one. This is from a lady called Juliet Reynolds. She's an executive manager. It was under the section of legacy inspiration. So this isn't just about a now. This is about something you could do ongoing. Because I mean, the reality is that the world has changed. We have rapidly completed much of that digital transformation that was supposedly going to take years to do. And we know that the driver of that wasn't the CEO, or the CFO, or the CTO, or the CEO. It was, in fact, COVID-19 that has made us move this quickly. And let me talk to you about Juliet's idea, and I'll explain the picture in a minute as well. So this one's filling the gaps. And what she says is, with the required move away from face-to-face in-person meetings, the company I work for has kept going in an excellent manner during lockdown periods. So this is the kind of now. Normal work continues, albeit in a slightly different way. There was always part of the job that was carried out remotely, and people within my organisation were well versed in virtual activities, so that no doubt helps. So that's a good thing. You know, this is an organisation that was used to working remote part of the time. But she goes on to say what became apparent quite quickly was both missing and being missed were all those social interactions by the water cooler, by the coffee machine, over lunch, down the pub, and through casual office conversations. And as a result, I began with a small team of people who were not part of a larger team, a weekly virtual coffee morning, just to chat, to catch up, to engage in some meaningful way and stay connected. And guess what? Their work is sometimes discussed as well. So what she's done there is kind of fill the gap, in a sense, something that just occurred naturally in a work environment. And you think about that, again, last time you were in the office, how many conversations did you have with people that you didn't plan to have? You know, you didn't turn up in the morning and go, I'm going to speak to so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. But no, you have a certain plan for the day, but then you bump into people at the coffee machine. You meet people at the over lunch. You might go down the pub after work. We'll remember those happy days. She also goes on to say another team I'm part of have also started a thing called Happy Hour. These are happy hour team calls using audio and video, which is really important. Alcohol is not mandatory, she notes, but instead it's an opportunity to meet and greet and stay up to date with colleagues and find out how the puppy training is going, how the children or the grandchildren are coping with this new normal, generally what people are up to, what experiences they've had in recent weeks. It's also a bit of a reason to dress up, it has to be admitted. And that's interesting, isn't it? We've all adopted a fairly casual approach to these things. One of my favourite exercises on any call like this now is to get people to stand up and just see what they are actually wearing on the bottom half. I saw something in the news today that actually some of the big brands, Prada, for example, have actually produced a line of top-up clothing. So it is brand designed, logoed in the center, so it's visible on the camera that you can, when you're having these sort of meetings. But only the top half counts apparently. So there we go. I'd imagine it's not half the price. So right now, Juliet goes on to say, I'm organising a multi-country tea party for much the same reasons as above: staying connected, reinforcing team spirit, not losing people to an isolated work life. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. There will be biscuits, special ones being shipped into each person's home. And we may even go in for some fancy dress for the actual event. Why not? It's about not letting people get lost during this period of uncertainty and change, and about plugging in the gaps that would have been normal office experience. So again, I think another brilliant idea, supplementing the stuff. And I think you might recognise that, we're having the formal work meetings anyway, but actually, there's all that other stuff that you didn't play. And the image you can see here is the Lego team. I love this one, and I'm presuming this is not a formal project steering committee meeting going on here. These people are clearly having a lot of fun, and that's something you could do. You can inject that kind of fun into the team meetings. Appropriate, of course, for the right occasion, but. Fill the gap. Don't make sure that nothing is missed. Make sure nothing is absent. That you're not just doing the serious work stuff. You're doing the other stuff. And actually the other stuff, the fun stuff, actually contributes to the serious work stuff as well. And I want to touch on something that was mentioned in that particular contribution, which is talking about people and talking about teams. And this is something that I feel strongly about and have been writing and talking about for a long time now. You might recognise this is good old Bruce Tuckman's model of team development. It says that when you put together a team of any form, a project team particularly, they will go through the following stages. They will form, they will storm, they will norm, and they will perform, and then finally they will adjourn or end or mourn or whatever. So forming is when you put the team together, and that's fine. You identify the resources, you put them together, and then there's this period of where people have to find their way of working. They have to find their way of being part of that team, which could be subtly different from the previous team they're in, or perhaps even another team they're in right now. And there tends to be this kind of storming period. It's a little bit of tension, a little bit of difficulty, a little bit of challenge. And once that's done, the team moves into a norm state. They are performing well in a sense, but they're not performing at the highest level yet. There is another period where they get to truly trust each other, to truly begin to collaborate. And once that happens, and you see this often towards the end of projects, that the team is working at high levels of efficiency. They are truly performing. And then at the end of it, you disband the team. And there's this, what Tuckman calls the adjourning period. It's also called the mourning period, because sometimes people are quite sad when teams just, break up like that. But the thing about project teams is that they work this way, but they don't work this way, because project teams are never assembled on day one. That's the first thing. They're never put together 100% on day one. I've never had all the resources for my project teams sitting there in a room waiting for me to start, and they're with me for the whole journey. Of course not. That's far too expensive, and it's not good use of resources. So one, they're never assembled on day one. Secondly, they can often be part the internal resources and external resources, third-party suppliers, offshore, that kind of thing. Or if you're working in a client-facing project world where you are the supplier and you're working with a client team, all this can happen. And resources arrive when they're needed. And this gives when you think about objectives, the team members will have different objectives, different priorities, different pressures on them. So this forming, storming, norming, performing process that you go through, whilst perhaps the core team will go through this on this pattern, every time you bring in someone new into the project team, they will have some sort of impact. And the more people you bring in a close period of time, for example, then they can certainly disrupt the Tuckman's model of team development. And disrupting can actually, take a team from a performing level back to a norming, and sometimes even to a storming phase. It just depends on how many people you bring in or what the change of personnel is. And right now, this is always something you need to seriously think about. And I'm doing a lot of work in the area of performance team management right now, or project team management now. So if anybody's interested in that, reach out to me, and I'm happy to share some more information. But I want to talk about the now, because we started off with the Projectless manager, and it was called the Projectless manager. I didn't think I said that. It was called that because so many people I saw on LinkedIn were in fact projectless. The projects have been stalled or stopped or delayed, or unfortunately they were open to work and being sort of challenged in that. And so I came up with that title just to explain that. But right now, I think we're in a period where we need to seriously think about reteaming, the need to re-engage distributed and virtually connected project teams. And I'm sure you've done some of this, but just to kind of re-emphasize on what needs to be done, you need to be listening to your team members, really listening to your team members. You need to do that anyway. You need to always do that. But right now, it's really important to listen to them and to understand them. It's about clarifying their priorities. And we're working in a situation, and we will be working in a situation for some time to come, where we are balancing our personal and our professional priorities, and we need some real clarity around that. You need to understand as best you can your people on your team. You have to set a very positive tone. You have to set that tone that is going to set the oh, I don't know, the profile, the attitude, all those sort of things of the team. You are truly a leader in this area, and of course, you want your team members to contribute to that, but you have to set the tone to begin with. Your job is constantly to reduce uncertainty. People really might be worried about, what happens when this project finishes? What happens if this or that happens? What happens if this issue, this crisis we're under, if this black swan, continues? You have to offer some uncertainty guidance or support for them. It's possible, and I'm used to this. I've been working in a virtual way. I must admit, I do really truly miss. I have no plans to get on a plane to go anywhere for the foreseeable future, and I do miss that. I mean, I used to moan about the travel, but I did get to go and meet some amazing people and visit some amazing places. So I kind of miss that. But a lot of my work has always been virtual and remote, and so I'm okay with this. But some of your team members might not. They might be feeling very isolated, as in that example that came from the lady who contributed to the book. Part of what she was talking about was to combat that isolation. And you've got to constantly check in on the well-being of your project team as well. You've got to make sure that they're okay. You've got to ask the questions. You've got to ask that second question, just to check on them. You don't leave them floating there in this kind of remote and removed and possibly isolated world. Even if they're providing what you need as far as your project's concerned, you still have a responsibility to connect with them, much as you would have done in the old normal. You need to do it in this new normal as well. So you possibly, and I hope you've done some of this, and I hope you continue to do this, but you might well have to rebuild. I was working with a company very recently, and we did a kind of a whole relaunch, rebuild, Reengage, Reinspire activity, because they recognized that people had been projects activities have slowed down. Some people have been furloughed, some people have been moved around, and there was this we kind of broken the spirit of the project teams out there. And the work I was doing was to literally gather people back, to rebuild that kind of team spirit, to re-engage people into the purpose of what they were trying to deliver, and to re-inspire them. And it had a very positive effect, and people appreciated it. And again, if that's something that could be useful for you, then you need to think about how you would go about and do that. It may be going well, it may be looking really, really great, etc. And it may be that your team members are not showing any signs of any negativity at all. But just check, just go back, refresh on that. Just make sure you're listening to them. Make sure you're clarifying their priorities, that you're setting that positive tone, that you're doing everything you can to reduce uncertainty, that nobody on your team is feeling isolated, and everybody's feeling good, that their well-being is high. Rebuild, re-engage, and re-inspire. Just a quick couple of stories about the power of the people and why this is hugely important. And this as project managers, why people are so important. But this is something else I'm working on a great deal. It's the area of artificial intelligence, or AI. And a couple of examples here before we kind of close up and move on to questions. So this is just something I read. I like it because it's a simple experiment. Oxford University and an AI company got together, and what they did was they got a whole group of football fans, and we got the football fans. What they got them to do was predict the results of the English Premier League football teams. The best teams in the world, of course. And they got them to on a number of weeks. They got them to predict the results of the games. Now, in any sports league, there are some top teams and low teams, and you can probably predict the results of those when they come together. But mid-table, it's not so easy. Well, after 10 weeks of doing this, the fans who had to individually predict the results, and then the company, Oxford University, put all these results together with the AI company, what they saw was the accuracy of prediction from these people who knew about football, loved football, followed football teams. They actually achieved a 53% accuracy on predicting the results. Now, when you think about it, that's not an amazing level of accuracy. It's only slightly better than tossing a coin. The next part is really interesting, because for the following 10 weeks, instead of individually predicting the results of these football matches, using the AI tool, the platform they had, they connected all of these individual sports fans together, and they got them to collectively predict the results of the football matches. And after that second period of 10 weeks, the accuracy of prediction went up to 72%, which is a huge leap in accuracy. Individuals have a certain power, we have a certain knowledge, and we do a certain level of success in a job. Collectively, but this is concept of the power of the hive mind, they can achieve so much more. Another reason why your project teams need to be fully empowered, fully engaged, and fully inspired right now. And then another aspect of this is a thing called the collective objective. And this is where I love this one as well. One, because you've got a lovely picture of bright coloured balloons there. And what happened was a teacher, he got the class of kids, young kids. I don't know how many in the class actually. Let's say there were 30 of them, typical class size. And he got them to blow up a balloon and to write their name on the balloon. And then he got them to mix the balloons up. He went around the classroom kicking the balloons all over the place. And he said, right, I want you to go and find your balloon with your name on. And I guess you can imagine that the noise and the chaos and the mayhem with balloons being kicked around and being thrown away and kids pushing past each other trying to find their balloon. Well, after 5 minutes, the teacher said, stop, because nobody had found their own balloon. The teacher said, right, let's try this a different way. What I want you to do now is I want you to pick up the balloon next to you. I want you to look at the name on the balloon. I want you to go and find that person, and I want you to give them their balloon back. And within 2 minutes, everybody had their own balloon. Again, by harnessing the collective, by harnessing the power of the many, by coordinating activities in this way, then you can get some amazing results. And I want to say thank you to the contributors of the Projectless Manager, because that's kind of exactly what they did. They saw my cry for help, if you like, my challenge out there on LinkedIn. They responded in a very timely manner. They complied, for the most part, to the brief. There was one or two I had to edit a little bit. And they were delighted to be part of this kind of 21-day experiment, 21-day challenge out there. So thank you to all of the true authors of this book. Really, my job, I wrote very few words for this book. My job very much was in coordinating it, running the project, connecting to people, communicating, and doing the last bit of getting it up onto Amazon and making sure it had gone through the editing process and was published out there. And we did it in the 21 days. So thank you to each and every one of those contributors. Now, the final thought. If we, the world of project leaders, can create something like this in just 21 days with 56 contributions from 21 countries, just imagine what we could do all together. And there are millions of us out there. And maybe a black swan isn't a black swan anymore when that power comes together. And I hope that's something that we truly can achieve and truly do. Which brings us to a Q&A, I think, at this point.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Of course, when you said millions of us, it's a million minds.
Yes.
And I truly agree. And that was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. Once again, I request all attendees to start sharing your questions on the chat panel. The chat panel is open now.
Thank you, Dev, for the intervention. Just reiterating Dev's invitation for you to drop the questions here. And in the meantime, Pete, if I may, thank you for the presentation. I have a question. May I ask it for you? May I ask it to you?
No, of course you can. Of course you can.
So I really liked in David's presentation on creativity, and David's contribution on creativity, he emphasized on the importance of questions. Yes. What are your favorite questions when it comes, whether to creativity or maybe to project management in general?
My favorite question. So I'm a big advocate of the KISS principle of keeping it simple. And so my favorite question whenever we're faced with anything is this as simple as it needs to be? Can we not make it simpler? You can say why is it so complex in many cases, but that's a kind of a negative approach. But can we simplify this? Can we simplify this? How can we make this easier to use to a point of it being viable, to a point of it being acceptable, of course. So that's one of my favorite challenging questions. I use it a lot when I'm working with organizations, when I'm running workshops, etc. Is, okay, you've explained something to me, but can we make it simpler? Can we actually strip this down to its absolute productive basics, if you like? So that's a great one to throw in there, particularly towards the end. If you've been working on something, then we've got all these minds coming together and are kind of describing something, maybe a solution, a process, an approach. And then the final question can be, that's fantastic. That looks like that will work. Can we make it simpler?
Simpler in terms of how we formulate it, or simpler in terms of the number of steps? How do you define the simple?
I typically I don't, because it's amazing where people go with that. It's like they have this thing that we've been working on. If you don't give them any particular guidance, it's like, just can we make it simpler? Then people will go in whatever approach they want. Maybe it is simplifying the process steps. Maybe it's simplifying some of those steps in the process. Maybe it's simplifying the actual overall solution. Maybe it's just simplifying the language they're using to describe it. There are many ways that we can go about that. So I try and keep it. I keep that. It's part of a question and part of a challenge, but I kind of keep it very open.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. So I'm looking into the chat thread, and I will be a little bit selfish now because I see no question. So I will take the opportunity to ask the second one, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, don't worry.
You know what? I think I really love fashion. So thank you for bringing Prada up. Oh, I see questions from Frank.
Earlier, I saw his name pop up. Yes. Hi, Frank.
Yes. Let me. Okay. Frank, you are unmuted now. You can ask your question.
Hey, Peter, how you doing? Peter, you discussed the hive concept. I like the name. Is that the same as the wisdom of the crowds, or is it something else?
No, it is. I mean, it's the hive mind is just one of the terms that's out there. I don't think we've actually settled on a standard description. It is the power of the collaborative. It is the hive mind. It is partly the link to that is a swarm effect as well. Is another thing you'll hear it when the majority of people get involved in something. No, I think I just like the hive mind because I always go down the imagery and hive mind, you get the bees. It's great.
Yeah, it's a very nice background. Example. Yeah. So, thanks, Peter. A great presentation.
Okay. As I said, I like that one because it's just a simple example of what can be quite a complex thing. And the whole area of AI is something I'm very, very keen on. I think it's going to have a whole massive and positive impact on project management. But that's a whole new presentation, so I'll stop talking there. So, what was your second question?
Well, I actually have one, but that's it. But now I thought of another one. The example with the balloons, I can imagine that's it's a good example. Could you use that in for adults, or is there a different way of doing that for adults and get the same point across? Or would you say, no, Frank, grow up, use balloons?
It'd be interesting. I don't know. It'd be an interesting experiment. I haven't thought about it, but you think, okay, you've got 30 adults in a workshop, say, and they all got a balloon, and you did the same thing. I think adults perhaps might begin to think a little bit about how they could make this better or whatever. I don't know. Kids are just overly enthusiastic and there's balloons involved, so it's probably not going to work exactly the same, but it'd be an interesting experiment.
Thank you, Peter. I was put on mute there. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Frank.
Bye.
And we have another question, but in the meantime, I would like to take advantage and ask for Dev's help to have him take out the name of our lucky winner today.
Okay. Thank you, Daniela. And the lucky winner for today's session is Pascal Farla.
Let me go to Pascal to unmute him. So Pascal, get ready to be unmuted. Pascal, I don't find Pascal.
Just below Olivier Delbrook, Pascal Farla.
Pascal Farda, I found Pascal. So,
Can you unmute?
hi Pascal. Hi Pascal, do you hear us? Hi Pascal, do you hear us?
Pascal's being shy.
Okay, so Pascal, you are the lucky winner of a free membership in the PMI chapter. So we will contact you after, so we can get in touch for this. And just to close the session, Peter, because I was telling you I have a second question, and you mentioned fashion, and thank you for that. You said that you have this thing where you make the people stand up in any video call. What was the funniest discovery so far?
I guess the funniest one was a lady who absolutely refused to stand up. So we just had to speculate about what the situation was there. Most people are, I can stand. I'm doing it now. Look, I mean, I'm wearing shorts. I don't know if you can see shorts. You probably can't see shorts, but I'm wearing shorts and trainers. But on top, I have my Lady Project Management shirt. Most people are kind of like that. But this one particular lady absolutely refused to stand up. So we could only, as I said, think about what she might or might not be wearing.
That is very funny. Thank you for asking. Thank you for your answer, and thank you for your intervention, Peter, and for the presentation. So, just as a note, yes, you want to present something, Peter?
I'm just showing. This is something else I'm doing with through the PMI Fair, PM Fair, and also with PMI Belgium. So there is a workshop coming up that Belgium are sponsoring called Strategies for Project Sponsorship. And there's a discount code for anybody. Right, that's you. Anybody listening, you get 40% off the price. So you just have to go to the Eventbrite site, go and search the Strategies for Project Sponsorship. And I'll be running this virtual session on the 14th of October.
Excellent. Thank you for providing us with such a big discount, 40% off. It's significant. We appreciate it. Just a reminder to everyone that I have added again the PDU number in the chat. So feel free to take that from there and add it to the website. So, Pete, any final closing words? I will close the recording just after you say goodbye to everyone. So,
no, I thank you for inviting me, and thank you for letting me share some thoughts around this current situation and the fun I had with the book. And my final note really is the kind of final point I made, which is together we can be incredibly powerful and effective in what we do, and we need to work together right now more than ever. So join the community and get involved in the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone. Remember your codes and have a great day.
Bye all.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.